Hello, and welcome once more to Denton's Tales. Now, the ancient Irish, they liked the number three. Oh, yes, they really liked it. Not only did they put triple spiral designs on just anything they could carve them into, but they even had triple deities. Two of the greatest goddesses of ancient Celtic Ireland each came in a triple form. Talk about split personalities, I ask you. And they were Bridget and the Morrigan. Now, Bridget was a fairly placid, easygoing sort of goddess, seen as a goddess of spring, fertility, and life. She was the mistress of healing and smithing. She was a kindly and caring goddess. She didn't go around, beating up people or getting into fights or anything like that. And later on, the early Christians popped a halo onto her head, and she became Saint Bridget. But now the Morrigan. Oh, the Morrigan was quite another matter. She was far from placid. Oh, about as far as you can possibly get, in fact. If there was a fight somewhere, she wanted to be in it. Quite possibly she might have actually started it herself. And far from wanting to end it and heal those injured in it, like Bridget, she would have been only too happy to keep it going. She was a probably rather terrifying goddess of the Tuatha De Danann, which means the people of the goddess Danu, and was herself a goddess of war and death, of destruction and fate and prophecy. Though not an evil being in herself. No, that was rather her job description, you might say. And she was a protector as well, guarding the land of Ireland and the people upon it, when of course she wasn't helping them to kill one another. Like the chariot, she could be seen in various guises. An old crone, a beautiful young woman, a mighty queen vested for battle, or as a raven or a crow, usually as a crow, being as she was a shapeshifter, and as with Bridget, she was either a single entity or as a triple one, along with Bab and Macha, known collectively as the Morrigna, or the Morrigans, if you prefer, and referred to in one medieval Irish account as the Raven Woman. She had the gift of prophecy, seeing far into the future, and despite her warlike, less than always lovable nature, her prophecies could be helpful on occasions, benefiting those she told them to, and of course of great assistance to those going into battle, combined with her power to influence people and alter the course of events. As to her triple personality, firstly, Bav. In Irish mythology, the Bav, which means a crow, was a goddess of war and destruction, a harbinger of doom who would often take the form of a screaming crow to strike terror into those who hurt her, interfering in battles by spreading confusion and fear among the combatants on one side to alter the outcome of the conflict in favour of whichever side she supported. On one occasion, when she supported the Tuatha De Danann against the Firbolg, it was said she gave the Firbolg army neither rest nor stay for 3 days and nights. The number three again, you see. Battlefields were actually often referred to as the Garden of the Bev. She could also decide how many would die before the fighting actually started, and as she could see the future, she would sometimes predict the death of an important individual, often lamenting and crying out with long, pitiful wails, which saw her being compared with the banshee. One tale describing how pale Bavs shall shriek, with her seen in a multiple role, since along with the Morrigan and Macha she formed part of the trio known as the Morrigna. And like the Morrigan herself, she could appear to someone at a ford as they crossed a river, seemingly washing their clothes, their armour, or even their horse accoutrements, which was a sure sign they were going belly up fairly soon. If you saw some old woman washing her things at a ford, well, make your will and get ready for the end. There was also what might be termed an end of world belief among the ancient Celts involving Bab, that she had a great boiling cauldron, and with it would bring about the end of the world, allowing it to boil over and flood the earth, leaving it desolate and barren. Macha. Now, Macha was what is termed a sovereignty goddess, associated particularly with the province of Ulster, where a number of ancient sites bear her name, such as Navan Fort in Macha, and the town and county of Armagh, Ardmacha, which are named after her. Several female figures named Macha can be found in Irish folklore, but all are believed to refer to the same goddess, one of the three sisters known as the Morrigna. As with other sovereignty deities, Macha is chiefly associated with fertility of the land, kingship over it, as well, of course, as warfare and horses. Now I call these women goddesses, since that is how they are seen, their powers alone seemingly warranting that title. And it is how the ancient Celtic Irish would almost certainly have regarded them. But by the Middle Ages that was not the case, the medieval church taking a pretty dim view of things like that. There was only one God, as far as they were concerned, and most certainly no female ones. Oh, dear me, female gods, perish the thought. How could a woman be a god? Multiple gods were blasphemous, but female gods would take blasphemy to unheard of levels of evil. Oh, yes, you could not have that. So the medieval Irish church tried to remove all traces of pre-Christian and thus decidedly evil and nasty religion, or to alter it, to make it seem as though it was actually Christian all along and thus help with the conversion of the pagan Irish. The goddess Bridget, for example. They gave her a halo, and she became Saint Bridget, worshipped on the same feast day as her former pagan self, and bringing much of her former pagan ceremonies with her into Christianity, such as an everlasting flame once tended by female druids, but now by nuns. Evil pagan practices, now Christian and thus quite proper. And the association of the old Bridget with the new one, helping to convert people who were used to the name and the feast day and all that sort of thing. Even the famous St. Bridget's cross, made of twisted straw, was only a Christianized version of something that had existed previously. Things like crosses and various symbols, both religious and secular, even children's toys, having been made from twisted straw for centuries, of which, of course, there would have been a great deal of it lying around in barns and the like. The church did not succeed, of course, in totally eradicating all traces of paganism to begin with, but any open worship by those who might secretly still follow the old gods would have been a rather serious health hazard, to say the least. And eventually the last remnants of the old ways faded into history, leaving behind nothing but a few superstitions and colourful stories. Now, it is possible to see the Morrigan in several ways. One as an individual goddess who just teams up with the other two from time to time, or as an actual triple entity, much like the Christian Trinity, a sort of collective, an ancient Celtic version of the Borg in Star Trek, you might say. Multiple facets of personality all together in one overall form, or simply as unrelated but similar goddesses, sharing the same characteristics, making all of them Morrigans as a type, but not the Morrigan. Some have regarded the term as an overall descriptive title for any goddess associated with war, fate, prophecy, and so on. And of course, the idea of three or more divine women working together wasn't unique to Ireland by a long way. No, there were the Nornir, or the Norns in Scandinavia, three of whom were named, and there were a great many other unnamed ones as well. And of course, the Morai in Greece, or the three Fates, as they are also known. The Morrigan does seem, however, to have been generally regarded as an individual, on occasions at least, with or without others actually assisting her. To sum up the trio, as it were, the Morrigan herself may be seen as an instigator of conflict, of battles and strife, planning far in advance to gain what she desires, be it rewards in various forms for her services in assisting one side against another, since she could work for payment, or just the victory of whichever competence she deems to be worthy of it. She is closely associated with crows and ravens, seen as her messengers and frequently taking the form of a crow herself. Bav, a banshee-like creature, principally associated with battlefields where she would take the form of a raven or crow, screaming to terrify and disorientate the combatants. Macha, protector of the land and everything connected with it, particularly, of course, in Ulster. Less, perhaps, of a battle figure than the other two, Morrigan. One particularly interesting tale of the Morrigan is her encounter with the great hero Kuhlen, an Irish equivalent of the Germanic Sigurd, or Siegfried, as Wagner renamed him, a mighty warrior renowned for his strength and courage. He was also rather self-opinionated and a tad overconfident in his own greatness, and not exactly, I'm afraid, the sharpest card in the pack, so to speak, which led him into conflict with the Morrigan, herself also very confident and rather easily offended. In the so-called cattle raid of Cúchulainn, a great event in Celtic mythology, Queen Maeve of Connaught launched an invasion of Ulster to steal a famous bull. But the Morrigan appeared to the bull in the form of a crow and warned him to flee, which he did. and the great hero Kuhlen defended Ulster, engaging in a number of single combats fought at fords against Queen Maeve's champions. Now the plot thickens. The Morrigan had fallen in love with the great hero, and after one of these combats, in which he was of course victorious, she approached him, dressed in a multicolored garment, and described in the old tale as her form very excellent, or in other words, she was rather a good looker, offering him both her love and her assistance. I have come to you. I have loved you for your reputation, and I have brought my treasures and my cattle with me, she said. But he rejected her offer of help in combat and, well, the personal services, shall we say. The time at which you have come to us is not good, said he, for our condition is evil through hunger. It is not easy for me to meet a woman while I am in this strife, basically telling her that he was far too busy to bother with her. Though what hunger and strife had to do with it is really hard to understand, seeing that her assistance might well be the cure for both of those things. If hunger was affecting your strength, then help you could probably do with, and strife would end with victory, which she might be able to bring more quickly. But I suppose, being the great hero that he was, he probably didn't think he needed help, especially from a mere woman. I mean, I ask you, a woman. Why would a great hero need help from a mere woman? Of course, in this case, the woman was a powerful goddess, something he might have considered more carefully, and offending the Morrigan was a mistake. She said, I shall be more troublesome to you when I come against you when you are in combat against the men. I will come in the form of an eel about your feet in the ford, so that you shall fall. Now, Kuhlen wasn't in the least bothered by that. He was a mighty warrior after all, and mighty warriors didn't tremble when threatened with an eel. I mean, I ask you. I will take you between my toes till your ribs are broken, and you will be in this condition until a blessing comes upon you, said he. She replied, I will drive the cattle on the ford to you, in the form of a grey she-wolf. Now again he was totally unimpressed. I will throw a stone at you from my sling, so that it shall break your eye in your head, and you will be in that state until a blessing comes upon you. Not to be outdone, the Morrigan said, I will come to you in the form of a hornless red heifer before the cattle. They will rush on you on the plains and onto the fords and on the pools, and you will not see me before you. But of course he just laughed it off. I will throw a stone at you so that your legs shall break under you, and you will be in the state till a blessing comes upon you. And so it transpired that at the next combat an eel tripped him, but he managed to injure it. The eel then transformed into a giant wolf, which stampeded a herd of cattle across the ford straight at Kuhlen. But he managed to grab his slingshot just in time, and he fired a stone into the wolf's eye, temporarily blinding it. But the Morrigan wasn't finished yet, and for an encore she transformed into a white, red-eared heifer, which led another stampede towards him. But he managed to dodge the charging cattle, and he threw a stone that broke one of the heifer's legs, forcing the Morrigan to retreat. And he, the great, invincible hero, after all, still managed to win each battle. Of course he did, despite her interference. And each time he had wounded her exactly as he said he would. Now later on, returning from the battle, he meets an old woman, and she's sitting on a stool milking a cow, an old woman who, rather strangely, just happens to have those same 3 wounds, broken ribs, a blinded eye, and a broken leg. What an interesting coincidence, anyway. Now, perhaps Kuhlen was just tired after the fighting, but for some reason he doesn't seem to find this a little bit odd. Great fighting prowess doesn't always come together with great intelligence, and he seems to have been a tad lacking in both observational skills and basic common sense. The old woman's injuries were obvious enough after all, and why would she be sitting there milking a cow, having sustained such considerable damage? Surely she'd have better things to do. But all that goes completely over his head. And when the old woman offers him a drink of milk, he accepts it, and he blesses her. Amazingly, her broken ribs are healed. Well, she gives him another drink, for which he blesses her, and lo and behold, her sight is restored to her damaged eye. Does our hero see anything strange, perhaps even a bit ominous in this? Not in the least. And he happily accepts a third drink of milk, blesses the old woman, and, yes, you've guessed it, of course, her broken leg is instantly repaired. Now, time for the big and oh so obvious secret to be revealed. You told me once that you would never heal me, she said, gloating, taking her true form. Kuhlen is totally gobsmacked. Oh, great gods, it's the Morrigan. Who could have known? Well, probably just about anyone but him. Had I known it was you, I never would have healed you, he said. Yes, he was really dumb. The Morrigan then prophesies bloodshed to come and leaves him, not trying to engage him in battle, since she has achieved victory enough by completely outsmarting him and tricking him into curing her, really making him look a bit of an ass. Brains over brawn, I suppose you could say. As Kuhlen rides to face new enemies, he once again encounters the Morrigan, when he sees an old hag washing bloody armor in the ford. And he knows it is an omen of his death, since that is the way the Morrigan would let a warrior know he was going to die, seeing her washing bloody armor. Later on, mortally wounded and knowing that he is dying, Kuhlen ties himself to a large standing stone, using his own entrails, as he wishes to die standing upright with the dignity of a warrior. But his opponents, of course, they're fearful to approach just in case he's actually still alive, and he's waiting to pounce when they come near. Though perhaps being tied to a rock with his entrails would handicap his fighting ability. But anyway, one can see their concern. But then a crow, presumably the Morrigan herself, of course, lands on his shoulder to show his fearful enemies that he is dead. It's rather fitting, in my opinion, I must say. One can speculate what might have happened had Kuhlen not been so full of his own importance and overconfident. Perhaps had he accepted her offer of help, he would not have ended up tied to a rock with his guts hanging out. Far from her coming to him at a time that was not good, as he told her. In fact, she had come to him at a very good time. About to go into battle would seem to me to be the best time to receive an offer of help, especially from a goddess who was known to influence the outcome of combats, and her promised sexual services afterwards. Hardly surprising that she was offended. Her military assistance and her great physical beauty rejected out of hand by Mr. Wonderful. I rather like the idea of her as a crow, sitting on his shoulder, probably laughing her head off. Well, cawing loudly, at least. The moral of the tale is, I think, that if a beautiful and fearsomely powerful goddess offers to give you a helping hand and then join you in bed afterwards, just say yes. The famous Celtic conjoined triple spiral, a device dating back at least 5,000 years to Neolithic times, well known from the carvings of the stone at the entrance to the Newgrange burial ground, is seen as representing the triple status of the Morrigan, and also a Bridget, the symbol associated with both of them. The ancient Celts, of course, regarded the number 3 as a magic number, seeing it in things such as birth, life, death, earth, sky, sea, the waxing full and waning moon, and so on. And that number is also seen as representing the goddess. Of course, crows and ravens are very closely associated with her, given her shape-shifting abilities, though crows more so than ravens. It was usually a crow that she transformed into. And these birds seeming to take an unusual interest in a person, perhaps watching them or following them, are often seen as either the messengers of the Morrigan keeping tabs on them, or perhaps as the goddess herself in that form. She would take that form to a battlefield, of course, on occasions. It seems very likely also that the Morrigan was the inspiration for the great sorceress Morgan le Fay in the Arthurian legends. I hope you enjoyed that little look at the Morrigan. And for now,